Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Malevolent Stained Glass Windows. Part 1. The Commission. Holly Arnold was a well-known artist, famous for her ability to capture light and color in her stained glass creations. Her studio, nestled in a quiet corner of the Isle of Wight, was a sanctuary where she could lose herself in her work, far from the bustling cities and crowded galleries. One brisk autumn morning, she received a peculiar commission from a wealthy but reclusive patron, Lord Edgar Huxley, who resided in an ancient manor at the edge of the island. Lord Huxley requested a series of stained glass windows for his private chapel, a place he described as sacred and deeply personal. Intrigued by the mystery and the generous payment offered, Holly accepted the commission and soon found herself exploring the musty archives of Huxley Manor. It was here she stumbled upon the legend of the Weeping Saint, a tale so steeped in darkness that it chilled her to the bone. The Weeping Saint, as the legend went, was a revered figure who had once lived on the island. He had been blessed with the power to heal, but this gift came at a terrible cost. To cure the ailments of others, he had to absorb their suffering into himself. Over time, the accumulated pain and sorrow twisted his spirit, turning his tears into a deadly curse. In his final moments, he was said to have wept into a piece of glass, imbuing it with a malevolent force that could bring about unimaginable chaos if ever released. Fascinated and horrified by the tale, Holly began sketching designs for the windows. Each pane depicted a different scene from the legend: the saint's miraculous healings, the anguished expressions of those he cured, and finally his own transformation into a harbinger of doom. As she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that the Weeping Saint was watching her, his sorrowful eyes following her every move. Part 2. The Creation. The glass arrived from a renowned supplier, each piece shimmering with vibrant colors. Holly worked tirelessly cutting and shaping the glass, then carefully fitting the pieces together. With each new pane, she felt a deeper connection to the legend, as if the glass itself was whispering secrets to her. One night, as she was putting the finishing touches on the central window, the one that depicted the saint's final, cursed tears, she noticed something strange. The glass seemed to pulse with a faint, otherworldly glow. At first, she dismissed it as a trick of the light, but the more she worked, the more intense the glow became. Determined to understand what was happening, Holly decided to stay overnight in her studio. As the hours ticked by, the glow grew stronger, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the walls. Just after midnight, a chilling breeze swept through the room, even though all the windows were tightly shut. The temperature plummeted, and Holly felt a presence behind her, an icy breath on the back of her neck. She spun around, expecting to find an intruder, but the room was empty. Heart pounding, she turned back to the window. The saint's image had changed, his eyes, once sorrowful, now burned with a malevolent fire. In a trance-like state, Holly reached out and touched the glass. A jolt of electricity surged through her body, and she heard a voice whisper in her mind, "Release me." Part 3. The Unveiling. The following day, Holly delivered the completed windows to Huxley Manor. Lord Huxley was delighted with her work and insisted on installing them immediately. The chapel was a small, dimly lit room, its stone walls covered in ancient tapestries. As the windows were fitted into place, the room filled with a kaleidoscope of colors, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Holly couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over her. She watched as Lord Huxley stood before the central window, his eyes fixed on the image of the Weeping Saint. "It's perfect," he murmured, a strange smile playing on his lips. "You've captured the essence of the legend beautifully." That night, Holly couldn't sleep. Her dreams were plagued by visions of the Weeping Saint, his eyes burning with an unholy fire. She woke in a cold sweat, a single thought echoing in her mind: something is terribly wrong. Part 4. The Revelation. Determined to uncover the truth, Holly returned to Huxley Manor the next morning. She demanded to speak with Lord Huxley, but the servants informed her that he was in the chapel and was not to be disturbed. Ignoring their protests, Holly pushed past them and made her way to the chapel. As she approached, she heard a low, chanting voice. Peering through the door, she saw Lord Huxley kneeling before the central window, his hands raised in supplication. The glass was glowing with an intense light, and the image of the weeping saint seemed to move, his tears flowing like rivers of molten glass. Holly's heart raced as she realized the terrible truth. The legend was real, and the windows were a conduit for the dark force that had cursed the saint. She had unwittingly unleashed a malevolent power upon the world. Part 5. The Confrontation. Bursting into the chapel, Holly screamed at Lord Huxley to stop. He turned to her, his eyes now glowing with the same unholy fire as the saint's. "It's too late," he said, his voice a distorted echo. "The curse has been awakened." Desperate, Holly looked around for something, anything, that could help her. Her eyes fell on a heavy iron candlestick. She grabbed it and swung it at the window with all her might. The glass shattered with a near-splitting crash, and a blast of icy wind knocked her to the ground. As the shards of glass rained down around her, Holly saw the image of the weeping saint dissolve into a swirling vortex of darkness. The chapel shook, and the walls seemed to close in. With a final, desperate effort, Holly reached out and seized the largest shard of glass, driving it into the center of the vortex. There was a blinding flash of light, and then everything went still. Part 6. The Aftermath. When Holly awoke, she was lying on the floor of the chapel. The windows were gone, reduced to piles of shattered glass. Lord Huxley lay nearby, unconscious but alive. The malevolent presence was gone, banished back to whatever dark realm it had come from. Holly left the Isle of Wight soon after, unable to shake the memories of what had happened. She never created another stained glass window haunted by the knowledge of what she had unleashed and the price she had paid to stop it. Years later, the legend of the weeping saint remained just that, a legend. But Holly knew the truth. Somewhere, in the shards of shattered glass and the whispers of the wind, the dark force still lingered, waiting for someone to set it free once more. Part 7. The Unseen Threat. Years passed, and Holly Arnold's once vibrant career as an artist faded into obscurity. She relocated to a small cottage on the mainland, where she lived a quiet, reclusive life. Despite her best efforts to forget, the memories of the weeping saint and the malevolent force she had unleashed lingered in her mind like a persistent shadow. One evening, while Holly was sorting through old sketches in her attic, she came across a small, untouched box labeled Isle of Wight. Inside were photographs, sketches, and a few pieces of stained glass from the windows she had destroyed. As she sifted through the box, a sharp pain shot through her hand. She had cut herself on one of the shards. Blood dripped onto the glass, and for a moment it glowed with that familiar, eerie light. Panic surged through Holly. She wrapped the shard in a cloth and buried the box deep in her attic, hoping to bury the memories with it. But that night her dreams returned with a vengeance. The weeping saint stood before her, his eyes burning with an even more intense fire. "You cannot escape," the voice whispered. "The darkness will find you." Part 8. The Warning. The next morning, Holly received an unexpected visitor. It was Emily, a young art student who had admired Holly's work for years. Emily had tracked her down, hoping to learn from the master herself. Despite her initial reluctance, Holly saw a bit of her younger self in Emily's eager eyes and agreed to take her on as an apprentice. As the weeks passed, Holly taught Emily the basics of stained glass art, carefully avoiding any mention of the weeping saint or her time on the Isle of Wight. But one day, while Holly was out running errands, Emily stumbled upon the hidden box in the attic. Fascinated by the shards of glass and the intricate sketches, she began to piece together the story. When Holly returned, she found Emily in the attic, the box open before her. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry," Emily said, "but these are incredible. Why did you stop?" Holly's heart sank. She had hoped to protect Emily from the darkness that had nearly consumed her. "Those windows," she said slowly, "are cursed. They hold a power that should never be unleashed." Emily listened intently as Holly recounted the tale of the weeping saint and the events at Huxley Manor. Instead of fear, Holly saw determination in Emily's eyes. "We need to destroy the remaining shards," Emily insisted. "If there is even a chance that the darkness can return, we have to stop it." Part 9. The Return. Reluctantly, Holly agreed. They gathered the shards and drove to a remote location where they could safely destroy them. As they prepared to smash the glass, a chilling wind swept through the area, and the sky darkened ominously. Holly's fears resurfaced. "It's happening again," she whispered. Before they could act, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Lord Huxley, but he looked gaunt and possessed, his eyes burning with the same unholy fire as the weeping saints. "You cannot destroy what you do not understand," he hissed. "The darkness is eternal. It cannot be banished, only contained." Huxley raised his hands, and the shards of glass began to levitate, swirling around him in a vortex of light and shadow. Holly and Emily were thrown back by an unseen force, struggling to regain their footing. "We have to stop him," Emily shouted over the roar of the wind. Drawing on her years of experience and newfound determination, Holly fought her way toward Huxley. She grabbed a shard of glass, feeling its malevolent energy pulsing in her hand. "We can contain it," she thought. "But we need a vessel." Part 10. The Sacrifice. Desperation fueled Holly's next move. She took a piece of cloth, wrapped it around the shard, and plunged it into her own arm. The pain was excruciating, but she felt the dark energy flow into her, binding itself to her very soul. "Ah!" Huxley screamed, but it was too late. Emily watched in horror as Holly collapsed, the remaining shards falling lifelessly to the ground. The dark energy swirled around her, then slowly dissipated, leaving an eerie calm in its wake. Huxley, now powerless, fled into the night, his twisted ambitions thwarted. Emily rushed to Holly's side. "Why did you do that?" she cried, tears streaming down her face. Holly smiled weakly. "It was the only way. The darkness needed a vessel, and now it has one, but it's contained, and it won't harm anyone else." Part 11. The Legacy. Holly's sacrifice marked the end of the Malevolent stained glass windows and the curse of the weeping saint. Emily, determined to honor her mentor's legacy, dedicated her life to mastering the art of stained glass, always mindful of the potential darkness that could lie within. Years later, Emily became a renowned artist in her own right, creating beautiful works that captured the light and warmth Holly had once brought to the world. She kept a single shard of the cursed glass in her studio, a reminder of the darkness they had faced and the sacrifice Holly had made to protect the world from chaos. And though the Isle of Wight remained a place of legend and mystery, the story of the weeping saint and the malevolent stained glass windows faded into obscurity, remembered only by those who knew the true cost of containing the darkness. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.